Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Monday. I'm not sure. I'll give you the long story of it. It is Monday, May 4th, 2026. This is Truth News. I am Walter Bass. And what an adventure we've had the last 8 days. 8 days ago, I was kidnapped by a piece of paper. Order of writ of assistance. A writ. Not a warrant, no criminal charges, no crimes committed, a writ for telling the truth about child sex trafficking by the United States government. That's right. I was physically kidnapped, handcuffed, placed in a police car, driven to a crisis center where I was held against my will from Friday of last week until Thursday. And they tried to force me to take an antipsychotic medication, citing that I have psychosis and am delusional, for calling the Attorney General, for calling law enforcement across this country, for sending emails and requests for federal casework to my public servants, to my congressmen, to my senators, to my taxpayer-funded public servants, reporting crimes against children is deemed delusional psychosis, and it warrants grounds for a kidnapping per a writ of assistance. And we're going to go through that. But as always, we're going to pay homage to the man responsible, one of the many responsible for these videos, this YouTube channel. And I'd like to give a shout out to the Capitol Police Intelligence. They are the ones who prompted me to go on YouTube and start a podcast. After repeated phone calls to Washington, D.C. pertaining to the kidnapping, violent sexual assault, and murder of my son by this serial child killer, State Judge Kelly L. Hansen of Marietta, California, 17 years worth of child victims he has kidnapped, raped, molested, tortured, abused, trafficked, and sold. Capitol Police Intelligence, Dee Dee and Jim, told me to write a book or start a podcast. Therefore, I am on YouTube with this Truth News, starting a podcast, documenting all of the domestic terrorist attacks on me and my family, my elderly mother, all to defend the rape, murder, and sale of children, which the United States government adamantly denies, despite the Epstein files, despite the Safe Family Adoption Act, despite CPS, despite Erica Kirk and her Romanian angels trafficking children to the United States military, despite Greg Laurie of Harvest Church trafficking children from Riverside County to Romania, despite the Change.org petition, despite Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer giving a speech in 2007 at the Eagle Summit Conference detailing and outlining how the United States government rapes, murders, and sells American children. Despite all of that, they deemed me to have delusional psychosis and attempted to drug me against my will with an antipsychotic medication called Risperdal, I believe is the name of it. Obviously, I did not take any drugs. I do not use drugs or alcohol or marijuana. I don't even take aspirin or Advil. But during these last 8 days, I have had to vehemently deny being drugged against my will and have staff at these facilities tell me that I will be held there indefinitely if I don't take the drugs. And I said, I'm never taking drugs. I don't do drugs. Haven't done drugs in years. Will never do drugs again. Don't care. Not doing them. So with that being said, I was told that these YouTube videos were a bad idea. Quote, Mr. Bass, you received some bad advice by whoever told you to go on YouTube and make videos detailing how the United States government rapes, murders, and eats children. Capitol Police Intelligence, Jim and Dee Dee, that is where that came from. So you can take it up with the Washington, D.C. law enforcement because they gave me the suggestion and idea to do this. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, I've spent 8 days. I went through the 4 Gospels of the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. I was working my way through Acts, reading and writing down different verses and scriptures that stuck out to me that applied to this current situation. this Orwellian dystopian nightmare that we're in, Orwellian wet dream, whatever you want to call it. And I'm hearing now, I've been out of the loop for 8 days, no media, no access to anything. I'm hearing now that Candace Owens is being sued yet again for basically telling the truth. I hear that a lot of people are being attacked, and I had people ask me in a kangaroo court, blatantly a kangaroo court. We have no justice system in the United States of America anymore. We have a group of pedophile protectors. We have a group of human and child sex traffickers using their positions of power and authority to do whatever they want. And the laws and rules of society, humanity, or the Constitution of the United States do not apply to them in any way, shape, or form, obviously. And I don't understand how 140 YouTube videos, hundreds of thousands of emails, hundreds of thousands of phone calls for 1,698 consecutive days, I have delusional psychosis because I don't want children raped, murdered, or sold. That's the extent of it. I haven't seen or heard from my child since 2021 when he was 7 years old, just turned 8. And he will be 12 this November, he'll be 12. I have not heard from him. And I was told by Capitol Police Intelligence in 2024 that my son was dead, to stop calling them. I was also told by Washington, D.C. Metropolitan Police Department's 3rd District that Donald Trump ate my son. Obviously, that is malicious and facetious, and I'm sure it's an exaggeration, but then again, we have all reviewed the Epstein files. We know that cannibalism of children is happening, and I find it ironic that Tim Dillon, the comedian and podcaster, openly talks about cannibalism of children. They are eating children. Pizza is all through Hollywood and Washington, D.C., everywhere, references to pizza and jerky and all of this. And they are trying to say I suffer from delusional psychosis. That is the ultimate projection, if I have ever seen one, because these people are convinced that 340 million Americans have no clue about the rape, murder, sale, or cannibalism of children by the United States government, overall as a whole. And here's my perception of that, because they did ask me, they said, so you believe the entire United States government is in a conspiracy to rape, murder, and eat children? I have it here in documentation. I'll read it for you. And my response was, whether I believe that or not is irrelevant. It's in the files. It's in the Epstein files. So whether I believe that or not, I can say the moon is made of cheese. That is my opinion. That does not mean I have delusional psychosis. I can say whatever I want. I can have an open opinion about anything I want. But obviously, as they say, when you're over the target, you get attacked. That's where lawsuits, that's where kidnappings, that's where attempted druggings come from. And we're going to go through this paperwork because I am just beside myself that in the United States of America in 2026, land of the free, home of the brave, land of opportunity, the beacon of hope and light and freedom for the world, this is where we're at as a society. Whether it's law enforcement, whether it's intelligence agencies, whether it's politicians, public servants attacking the public they are sworn to serve because of the crimes they've committed. If you don't want to be attacked for committing crime, don't commit crimes. If you don't like people calling you a crackhead, don't smoke crack. Stop smoking crack. Get it together. If you don't want to be called a whore, stop being a whore. It's really that simple. If you don't like the labels that come with your behavior, change your behavior. Stop trying to tell everyone to stop labeling you. Change your behavior, because the truth doesn't change. And that's why this is Truth News. I stand firm on the truth. I stand firm in my convictions and my belief in Jesus Christ, which I will get to about that. You won't believe what is going on inside some of these mental health facilities and what they are deeming as mental health. So last Friday, I came home from work. I was with my 78-year-old mother. We were watching TV in our apartment, minding our own business. Wasn't making any phone calls, wasn't sending any emails. And I get a knock on the door. and it's my landlord. And she's holding a screw. And she says, hey, Walter has a flat tire. I found a screw in the parking lot. So obviously I need to address this right away because I'm a problem solver. When I see a problem, I just solve it and we move on. That's it. There's no procrastination. So I go downstairs, I go to my truck, and as I round the corner to my truck in the parking lot, three to four police cars and around 6 police officers surround me, yelling at me, don't run, don't run. Grab me, slam me against a police car, put me in handcuffs. The entire time I'm asking, what crime have I committed? What crime have I committed? What's the criminal code? What's the statute? Not a word, not a word. They handcuff me, they throw me in the back of a police car. And I'm like, okay, what crime have I committed? A guy, none of these people identified themselves, has a piece of paper rolled up just like this. Nothing on the outside, just a piece of paper. And he says, you have a mental health warrant. A mental health warrant. Okay, now if you had a warrant, you would have come to my door, kicked my door in, and drugged me out. So let's address that first of all. You lured me outside using civilians, using my own landlord, to lure me outside under false pretenses, to ambush me and kidnap me, which they did. I did not receive any paperwork until today. I was released today at around 3 p.m. And for the duration of the 8 days, I was told 6 to 9 times per day that I have to take medication. And I told them I don't do drugs. I don't do any drugs. I don't even use high fructose corn syrup. I don't drink soda. I buy organic syrup if I eat pancakes. No high fructose corn syrup. That's how chemical resistant or reluctant I am to use chemicals. And they were persistent. So Friday I get picked up. Monday we have a kangaroo mock court hearing in which they say that I continue to call law enforcement and other agencies reporting child sex trafficking, and that I am suffering under delusional psychosis. Here we go. I'm gonna read this to you. And this is my paperwork they gave to me. It's not a violation of HIPAA. I choose openly and freely to share this under my First Amendment constitutional rights, which they are trying to strip me of because they told me basically I cannot make YouTube videos anymore. So, Order for Writ of Assistance is the title of this paperwork. Whereas, it is the opinion of the court. The opinion of the court. Now, mind you, I've never spoken to anyone of the court. I've never been assessed by anyone. There was no psychiatrist, no therapist. There was no drug test administered. Whereas, it is the opinion of the court based upon the allegations presented as follows. Consumer, that would be me. I'm a consumer. I'm not a citizen. I'm a consumer. Has a history of severe mental health diagnosis, including psychosis, unspecified delusions, and paranoia. Now, unspecified delusions, all I have done is document legislation, present facts, present testimony from Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer. I have presented evidence upon evidence upon evidence, concrete, undisputable evidence of child sex trafficking by the United States government. Period, full stop. Not counting the Epstein files that we have gone through, not counting the Romanian Angels, the lawsuits, Greg Laurie and Harvest Church, as I've touched on all of this, not to mention State Judge Kelly Hansen, who kidnapped my 7-year-old son, stuck his dick in my 7-year-old son, and I haven't seen or heard from my 7-year-old son since 2021. And they're saying I'm suffering delusions and paranoia. That Walter Wayne Bass is a person in need of immediate mental health treatment. Immediate mental health treatment for making YouTube videos and calling law enforcement to report child sex trafficking. Now, I want to remind everyone, this is the 4th time in 3 states I have been placed on an involuntary mental health hold. All 4 times it's for reporting child sex trafficking to law enforcement, whether it's state, whether it's local, whether it's federal, whether it's the Secret Service, the FBI, Homeland Security. I've gone on whistleblower websites and filled out the appropriate documentation. And it's just a basic denial. Just deny. They are living in delusion and projecting their delusions upon we the people. They're doing this to Candace Owens. They're doing this to everyone. Now, here's the kicker. The reason I get placed on involuntary mental health holds, I get kidnapped, is because I don't have millions of dollars like Candace Owens or Baron Coleman or Tim Dillon or Theo Vaughn or some of these other podcasters. I'm just a blue-collar guy living check to check that just don't want children to be hurt. I don't think adults should be harming children, period. That's it. It's that simple. I don't think adults should be harming children. And I believe if adults do harm children, law enforcement should arrest the adults. That's not true in the United States of America any longer. So, I digress. I'll read on. The court found that pursuant to 43A.O.S.5-410, Walter Wayne Bass should be involuntarily committed to a mental health facility for immediate mental health evaluation pursuant to 43A.O.S.5-414 and or further inpatient treatment, and to be held until a hearing on the merits set for April 27th, 2026 at 9 a.m. That was the kangaroo court. And I'll get to that. It is therefore ordered that any law enforcement officer of the state, I'm not going to identify the state because I don't want any problems, so I'm going to redact names, identities, or states involved in this domestic terrorism in violation of my 1st, 4th, 8th, and 14th Amendment rights. It is therefore ordered that any law enforcement officer of the state, all excuses and delays notwithstanding, are hereby commanded to pick up Walter Wayne Bass from his last known address, redacted, or any location in which he may be found, and deliver him to OCCIC. Or, not going to name the other place, or any available emergency crisis center to be committed and evaluated and held until a hearing on the merits. So basically, for making YouTube videos, for calling law enforcement and reporting child sex trafficking, I'm having a mental health crisis. Not the people who rape, murder, sell, and eat children. They're fine. That's perfectly acceptable. Not a problem. Child sex trafficking, raping, murdering, kidnapping children. No problems there. But a man making YouTube videos, documenting everything through emails, documenting everything through phone calls, recording everything after he works 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, takes care of his elderly mother, and does everything he has to do to live somewhat of a normal life. I got to do these YouTube videos, and I'm suffering a mental health crisis. Okay, but I digress. Law enforcement is authorized to use any reasonable force necessary, including breaking into any structure in which he or she has reason to believe Walter Wayne Bass to be located. Now, again, this is not a warrant. This is a writ. I don't think a writ allows you to break into any structure in which he or she is believed to be located. So there's the documentation, and we're going to go through this. This is going to be a little bit longer than 30 minutes, I can already tell. I'm going to try to get through this as quickly as possible. I got to go through licensed mental health professional familiar with the above named person and review relevant medical records, and is a person requiring treatment and should be provided appropriate treatment. Let me see. Basically, I got to see someone who went to school, memorized a bunch of information, that has absolutely no life experience and does not know anything about the courts or law or the statutes like kidnapping or child sex trafficking. But they know about Risperdal. So, notice of hearing. I want to go through this. I want to find where it said the reason. Oh, respondent is not competent to consent to or refuse treatment, including medications. Very important right here. They are saying, I am not competent enough to decide if I want to put chemicals into my body, despite the fact that I have not done drugs or alcohol or marijuana, not even an aspirin or Tylenol, in over 8 years. And they are trying to say I'm not competent to consent to or refuse treatment, including medications. And they tried to force me to take drugs. And Risperdal, by the way, is a dopamine blocking antipsychotic. Basically, when they block your dopamine receptors, you no longer feel anything. Dopamine is what makes you feel alive, makes you enjoy things, the feeling of accomplishment, achievement. The human will is basically driven out of dopamine. And they are trying to drug the human will out of people. So, and this was, I'm not going to name these people because they basically threatened me on recording that I'm not supposed to be making YouTube videos. But this is my freedom of speech under the First Amendment right. And as a United States citizen, I refuse to allow anyone to take my rights as a human being away. My right to speak, my right to think will not be stripped of me by anyone, especially people I go to work for and pay taxes for them to have jobs. Unacceptable. Now, respondent is a risk of harm to self or others. Based statements, typo, they couldn't even say based on. Based statements written and verbalized to others pertaining to harm to self and or harm to others. Never threatened anyone. Never. I made statements. I gave demands. Never threatened anyone. This is all documented on YouTube. So, respondent has been observed and continues to exhibit symptoms of delusional thinking. So reading the Epstein files, reading legislation, reading what's going on and interpreting them as appropriate through the Epstein files, through Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer's testimony at the Eagle Summit Conference in 2008, you are more than welcome to Google it. I have it here on my phone. I will play a short clip, and I implore anyone who doesn't believe that the United States government is selling stolen children, I will play a short clip of this because I'm trying to keep these videos down, the time to 30 minutes. We're going to go over tonight. But I just can't believe this is where we're at as a country, as a society, that we're doing this.
Maybe solutions for families and children, and maybe look to some steps that we can take. This is not to say that there are not those children in wretched situations who need to be removed. There are, and we all agree. But tonight, I'm talking about those children removed from their homes intentionally for profit.
Oh.
Children are seized unnecessarily from their families due to the federal aid created in 1974 entitled the Adoption and Safe Families Act. It offers financial incentives to the states that increase adoption numbers. To receive the adoption incentives or bonuses, local CPS must have more children. They must have more merchandise to sell. Funding is available when a child is placed in a foster home with strangers or placed in a mental health facility and medicated, usually against the parents' wishes.
Now, I think that's just, she gave an entire sermon about this, and she wrote a scathing letter about that. That is a Georgia senator who was murdered, Georgia Senator Nancy Schaefer. She lost her Senate seat over advocating for children. She was murdered. Her and her husband were murdered in 2010. You are more than welcome to look this up. And the United States government, law enforcement specifically, is trying to say that I exhibit symptoms of delusional thinking, mood instability, aggression, and threats of violence. Lies, lies, lies. Am I allowed to vent? What I do is I do call and I do yell and rant and rave at these people because they want to engage in psychological warfare. So I give them a dose of their own medicine. The problem is they don't like losing at their own game. See, that's the problem. The FBI, Homeland Security, all these so-called intelligence agencies, all of these so-called politicians or public servants, they like to play games on citizens because they think they're smarter than us. They think they're better than us. They think we're just goyim. They think we're just slaves. We're stupid. And when they find someone like a Candace Owens or a Tucker Carlson that can read between the lines, tells the truth, and has the courage to stand up and speak out, well, then they attack them because they can't lose at their own game. That's their problem. Pride, ego, arrogance, and ignorance. And those two, that's arrogance and ignorance is a deadly combination, and it is running rampant across the United States government. But I will read on. Specifically, respondent has made videos, sent emails, and or made phone calls to several police departments, the Attorney General, as well as congressmen, alleging that the United States government rapes, murders, and eats children. That is a fact. That is a fact. It's in the Epstein files. I'm not alleging anything. There's no allegedly, maybe, perhaps about it. It is documented in FBI 302 forms. It is documented by witness testimony. We have seen press conferences on the steps of the White House with the survivors of these crimes against humanity. These are not allegedly, maybe, perhaps. So, I'm gonna redact this because it pertains to individuals. But they're saying that this is a respondent gave an ultimatum stating that if his son's remains are not returned, we will proceed as if there is no laws in the United States of America. Now let me pause there. Basically, a parent has no right to request or demand the remains of their murdered child the United States government stole and murdered. Per their own words, he's dead. My son is dead, according to Capitol Police Intelligence in 2024. And I have no right to demand my child's remains in the United States of America in 2026. And that I want to address the first part. We will proceed as if there is no laws in the United States of America. Now, either we are a country of laws or we're a country of men, and it's just, there are no laws. Now, how can you lead if not by example? How can you say there are laws if you're out here running around being lawless? And that's not up to me. That is up to my public servants who I pay to set an example. They are to provide we the people with safety, security, liberty, and justice for all. That is what we pay for. That is what I pay exorbitant amount of taxes, property taxes, vehicle taxes, payroll taxes, taxes on food, taxes on gas. I pay. And all I'm asking for is law, order, safety, security, and justice. That's it. That's it. But to them, that it would be delusional thinking. It's delusional thinking to expect your tax dollars to pay public servants to serve the public. This is an Orwellian wet dream if I have ever seen one. Let's see. That was that page. Let me get through these. There's so many pages. That was the main page I wanted to read. We're at the 30-minute mark. So that is basically it in a nutshell. I mean, there's much more. And I can go through some of the things I seen and witnessed. It was horrible. I'll give you one story. In one of these facilities, there was a 91-year-old man with Alzheimer's and dementia walking around, screaming for Kathy. I don't know who Kathy was. I don't know if Kathy was his wife, his daughter, his sister, his caregiver. The man was 91 years old, lost, scared, frightened, walking around screaming, Kathy, help me. Kathy, where's Kathy? Help me. And he kept trying to open doors, and all the doors were locked. The man was in fear. He was suffering from Alzheimer's or dementia. They drugged him against his will. Drugged him. He was in a mental health facility. They have 91-year-old Alzheimer's patients in mental health facilities and drugging them against their will. I witnessed this. And I witnessed so much more. The lack of humanity, the barbarianism is just beyond belief. And ladies and gentlemen, we're at the 30-minute mark, and I'm going to try to wrap this up. I just wanted to touch base with everyone and let you know where I've been for the last 8 days. Is being held against my will after being kidnapped for reporting child sex trafficking to law enforcement. That's it in a nutshell. That is it. And that's no exaggeration. So while I was in there, the 8 days, you see these are handwritten, all these front and back. I read the 4 Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and was working my way through Acts when I got out. On top of reading one of my favorite books, The Mentor, the Kid, and the CEO. Let me get this book out. If I can do it without making my other books fall. And I'll show everyone. If anyone gets a chance to read this book, I read this book. This is probably the 4th or 5th time I've read it. And every time I read it, it gives me hope. And it makes me feel good. And it is really a blueprint, a simple blueprint for living a good life. Exercise, help people, eat healthy. And, it's just discipline. It's all about discipline. And I read this book when I started my spiritual journey that I've been on for 8 years. This was one of the first books I read. So please, if you have teenagers, young adults, or even if you're lost in life, if you're out of hope, you're in a bad place, I strongly advise you read this book. Look, it's a quick read. It's 150 pages. 150 pages. There are references to many good books in here that I've already read. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale. There are so many nuggets of wisdom in this book. I highly recommend it to anyone. The Mentor, the Kid, and the CEO. It's by Tom Page with Walter Jenkins. So before I close tonight, and it's late here. Like I said, I just got out today. I had to run around, and they left my 78-year-old mother here all alone. She could not leave. She can't drive. She couldn't go to her doctor's appointment. She couldn't get her medication. Luckily, my sister, who lives not far away, but too far to drive, she had Walmart deliver my mother some groceries so my mother could eat and maintain her life. But they left my elderly mother here alone. No caregiver, no nothing. All because I would not stop reporting child sex trafficking to law enforcement. That's where we're at in the United States of America in 2026. So that being said, I took down verses, and I'm just going to read a couple. We're going to go through a couple. We're going to go through Luke 20:20. And this is the New International Version. So this is a layman's terms. That's the Bible I had in there. And by the way, I had to have a doctor's note to get this Bible in there. As soon as I got there, I said, I need a Bible and a pen and paper. And they said, oh, you can't get a Bible. I said, excuse me? And they said, you have to have a doctor's note to get a Bible. And I said, why do I need a doctor's note to get a Bible? They said, if you're suffering delusional psychosis, reading the Bible could make it worse. Let me repeat that. I needed a doctor's note in a mental health facility to get a Bible. And this is the Bible they give you. It's just the New Testament. And look at this. Can you read that? Can you read that? That's how I had to have these. I had to have someone, luckily, one of the staff members gave me some readers, these glasses, to read the Bible. And that is all I did. I read, I did my push-ups, I worked out every day. I went on a 2-day fast. I didn't eat from Friday until Monday, didn't eat a morsel of food for 2 days, went on a fast, prayer, workout, meditation. And that's the key to having a routine, is no matter what happens in life, no matter what these demonic, evil creatures do, you got to stay in faith, you got to stay grounded, you got to have a routine. No matter where they put my body, my spirit is what drives me. My routine is what keeps me grounded. And I will be back in the gym tomorrow. And we'll be back to work shortly by the grace of God. And I'm thankful to my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who allows me to endure these trials, tribulations, and demonic attacks and keep my faith in God. And they're not going to break my faith in God. They're not going to break my will. They're not going to break my spirit. They're not going to drug me and mentally abuse me or poison my brain, as they have attempted many times. But I digress. Luke 20:20. Keeping a close watch on him, they sent spies who pretended to be sincere. That's what the Pharisees and the Sadducees and the scribes did to Jesus. They kept a close watch on him. Sound familiar? Luke 21:12. But before all of this, they're referring to all the trials and tribulations you're going to have to, the birth pains they're going to go through. But before all of this, they will seize you and persecute you. They will hand you over to synagogues and put you in prison, and you will be brought before kings and governors, and all on an account of my name. That is what Jesus said. Luke 21:17. Everyone will hate you because of me. 18. But not a hair of your head will perish. 19. Stand firm and you will win life. John 1:4. In him was life, and that life was the light of all mankind. 1:5. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. 1:17. For the law was given through Moses. Grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. See, Moses gave us the laws, but Jesus gave us salvation. So there was a couple more I wanted to read before we wrap this up. Where was it? Mark 13:23. Be on guard. I have told you all things beforehand. 13:33. Be on guard. Keep awake and pray, for you do not know when the time will come. Keep awake. See, they want to sedate you and drug you and put your brain to sleep. They don't want you thinking. They don't want you seeing. They don't want you believing. They want you zombied, drugged out. Let me see. 13:37, Mark 13:37. And what I say to you, I say to all, stay awake. Let's go with, we'll go with one more. 3:22, this is Mark 3:22. And the scribes who came down from Jerusalem were saying, he is possessed by Beelzebul, and by the prince of demons he cast out demons. Do you hear how this is the same thing that has been going on for 2,000 years, ladies and gentlemen? Evil calling good evil. That is it in a nutshell. Evil calling good evil. Well, as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. I stand on truth, and I stand in faith of my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who gave me all things, and I am grateful for. And I will glorify his name every chance I get. So, ladies and gentlemen, I pray you stay awake. I pray that everyone can see what's really going on out here. We know who's who, and we know what the truth is. We know what reality is, no matter how much people try to convince us that that's not the case. And as always, I want to thank everyone for your time. I want to thank you for your attention. And I ask that you please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Share these videos. I would like to spread this message as far and as wide as possible. Thank you. God bless you all. Have a good night.